And joining us right now, Representative Frank Wolf, Republican of Virginia, there in the 10th District. Final few months as our congressman from that district. Thanks for joining us, Representative Wolf.
Sure, good morning. Good to be with you.
I've got to ask you, as we continue to get more information, there's a whole lot of discussion about what America has done right and wrong with regard to the Ebola virus and what we should do going forward. Let me start you out with this very simple one. Should we very seriously be considering restriction of travel to and from the nations where the Ebola virus is running rampant?
The answer, I think, is yes. I think we have to consider everything. To give you a little bit of background, on July 28th, Ken Isaacs with Samaritan's Purse called me and said they were having a very difficult time getting Dr. Brantley and the nurse out. Every time they called the federal government, nobody could tell them what to do. There doesn't seem to be any kind of consistent, organized effort. I think people are losing confidence. We see the Veterans Administration. We see the IRS. We see just the other day the Secret Service. And so there are a lot of good people. Dr. Frieden is a good person at CDC. Dr. Fauci is and all. But I think it would be helpful to have one person or maybe one or two, somebody like a Bob Gates, Secretary of Defense, Colin Powell, or maybe Mike Leavitt, or a combination, to really be the decision makers to pull everything all together. There are gaps.
So you're calling for, you want an Ebola czar. You want somebody
I want somebody who can make the decision. Who is making the decision on aviation, on international airline policy? The Brits have stopped servicing that area, so has Air France. Should we? What are they doing in Europe? What other countries are participating? Is England putting every effort in? Is France putting every effort in? Is Germany putting every effort in? Is China putting every effort in? Is Japan putting every effort in? And who can pull all, not just American, but all of the Western drug manufacturers together? Who can bring them? Have a meeting in Geneva or a meeting here. Bring them all together. Who's working on the vaccine? Who's working on the treatment? And at the hearing that was held in early August, people kept saying, well, we don't want to violate the protocols. Well, Dr. Brantley took that drug, and the nurse took that drug that nobody knew if it would work, and it worked. And we thank God that it did work.
Right.
And so we want to get every drug manufacturer, every company who makes drugs in China, who makes drugs in Germany, who makes drugs in France. But I think if you had one or two or three individuals, frankly, if you brought Bob Gates, former Secretary of State Colin Powell, and former Secretary of HHS Leavitt, bring them in together and let them kind of pull this thing together. But right now I just heard that Dr. Frieden said he's going over to the White House to get more information. Well, I don't think the information is in the White House. I think it's bringing some of the very best minds together and coordinating this, not just in the country, but worldwide.
So what I'm hearing is that you think it's important to have somebody with great organizational skills, not necessarily a medical background.
Exactly, because Dr. Frieden knows what he's doing on medicine. Fauci, NIH knows what they're doing. But somebody who can make a decision, somebody who can bring all the facts together, kind of talk with the best minds and do it. But right now, what is it? Why is aviation policy different in France than it is here, or different in England than it is here? Why aren't all the drug manufacturers all over the world working on this, not just one here in the United States or one in Canada? So I think you need a group of people or one person who can bring this and pull this all together.
All right, so you just mentioned something that we've been talking about here on this program. We're sort of confused as to why, if you were to have an outbreak, let's say, of hoof and mouth disease in Canada, the first thing we would do is we would shut down the borders. No cows can come into the United States from Canada, right? That would be done within 20 minutes. But yet we have an outbreak that affects human beings in West Africa, and we've done nothing to shut down people coming to this country from West Africa. I just saw a statistic that said since the Ebola thing broke out, 40,000 people from West Africa have migrated to the United States.
And there are, I think, roughly 12,000 Liberians who have U.S. visas who can come here. I think they're having a certain element of political correctness come involved. I think we see political correctness when we're fighting the radical Islamic terrorism, just like the case out in Oklahoma City. That's terrorism. That's not workplace violence. And I think here we're seeing a certain political correctness. Nobody wants to kind of say. That's why I think you bring in Bob Gates or Colin Powell or Bob Levitt, somebody like this who can make these decisions, what is in the best interest of the American people. I think that's what you need.
Representative Wolf, we're talking about these having somebody in as the point person, but I mean, if the Obama administration is already dictating policies, and we're now getting reports that they reversed a Bush proposal with regard to how the CDC would allow some countries to let people in or out based on the disease issues in their nations, it was the Obama administration that lifted those restrictions that the Bush administration put in. So even if the president appointed somebody, do you have any confidence that he'd not forego that political correctness?
Yeah, I think if Bob Gates or Colin Powell or Secretary Levitt, they're going to do what they think is in the best interest. I mean, they're not going to be involved in political correctness. Yeah, I saw that report that they took these things out, and I think there is a certain element of political correctness. But yeah, Gates would speak truth. I think Colin Powell would speak truth. Secretary Levitt would speak truth.
By
and
saying,
I think you need this.
Congressman Wolf, by saying political correctness is sort of informing part of the decisions here, you're suggesting that the administration is putting political sensibilities to certain interest groups above the public health of Americans.
Well, I don't know, but look what we faced. The Veterans Administration, how long did it take before anything? I listened to you guys on that. It took months before they would do anything. On the IRS scandal, I mean, it's still going on.
Yeah.
The Secret Service, and we all thought that Secret Service were like Clint Eastwood that could make no mistake. There was the case in the CDC elevator with a guy with a gun.
So politics is affecting everything in this administration.
You need to bring some good people like, again, I'll just use it, policy. Personnel is policy. Bring a Bob Gates, bring a Colin Powell, bring a Secretary Levitt in.
You have mentioned Gates and Powell. Do you have some?
I just think there are people who have gotten things done, who are going to do what is in the best interest of our country, and I think that's what we need. And I think the earlier we do something like this, it's not meant to be criticism of anybody. It's pulling in the very best. Hey, if you had a problem, you want the best people involved in solving the problem. We have a problem. The world has a problem.
All right.
The world has a problem.
Congressman Wolf, we mentioned that this is your final term. You've served the 10th District of Virginia since 1981, I believe. The election is 4 weeks from tomorrow. Are you paying attention to the race between Comstock and Faust?
Am I paying attention? I was with Barbara Comstock on Saturday morning. We did a rally out in Leesburg. Yes, I'm paying a lot of attention.
How do you think she's doing? I mean, it's an interesting district, and it's kind of.
I think Barbara's doing very well. Barbara worked for me for five years. I mean, when Barbara sees a problem, she'll deal with it. When we had Lyme problem, Barbara dealt with it. When we had sexual trafficking, which we still have in this area, Barbara came in and put together a major policy. I think she'll do very well, and I think she'll be elected.
All right, Representative Frank Wolf, always great to have you, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks.